right. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. So I'd like to welcome everyone to this meeting of Council. The meeting is being live streamed and recorded, and the voices and images of those participating in the meeting and in the gallery may be captured as part of this recording. We acknowledge the original custodians of the land that we're meeting on, pay respects to elders past and present, and any descendants who are with us or watching tonight. As councillors, we have all taken an oath to carry out our duties in the best interests of the people of Indigo Shire and to do this in a fair and impartial manner. We are all committed to exercising the council's powers and functions to the best of our skills and judgment. Do I have any apologies or leave of absence? Any declarations of conflict of interest? No? Okay, so we'll move to open forum, and I think tonight we have one question, and it's from Robin McLeish. Welcome, Robin. So we can record you. Thank you.
Very complicated, isn't it?
It's very complicated.
My question relates to the plate layers cottage. At the 25th of June meeting, Council decided that the plate layers cottage would not be retained for long-term lease on commercial terms. It is now 5 months since the decision was made not to renovate the cottage. Has Council reached a decision on the future of the plate layers cottage? If not, when should we expect a decision to be reached?
Okay, thank you for the question, Robin. And I'm going to actually ask the CEO, Trevor Areno, to give us the latest update on that one.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My recollection now of that resolution was that Council decided not to seek commercial rent on that property, but also didn't authorise that we proceed to spend money that was in the budget, subject to that, subject to Council resolution to do the works on the plate layers cottage. So in effect, what we've taken to mean from that resolution is that we go away to find other options to look at and bring back to Council at some point about the cottage itself. So as staff, we're going away to look at that, whether there's other ways, whether there's community groups that may want to be involved, whether there's other grant opportunities and things like that. So it was a resolution that really didn't support the recommendation put forward by staff. So we now need to go away to find other ways or other solutions to that. So the simple answer to your question is no, there's not been a Council decision since that last resolution in regards to plate layers cottage, and mainly because staff have not brought back a different option for them to consider.
I will just add, we have been approached by a community group that is very keen to see if they can get involved in restoring the cottage. So we've been looking at that as an option. And as Trevor said, also looking at whether maybe there's grant opportunities. So we don't have an outcome yet, but it is something that we're trying to find a way forward on.
Do you envisage a time frame?
Can anyone give a definitive answer on that? I think it's one of those we're just still working with. That this community group's doing some more work themselves to see what proposal they can bring back to us, because obviously they've got to see if they can access some funding themselves. So it's a bit hard to answer that specifically, but I can assure you that there is work continuing on it, and I think we all want an outcome sooner rather than later, but I can't give you a date at this stage.
I shall look forward to the announcement.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Before I go any further, anyone who's watching this or sitting in the gallery tonight will notice that we're all wearing a T-shirt that is a bright orange colour that says "Respect Women, Call It Out." This is a nationwide 16-day campaign addressing violence against women, and I'm very proud that Indigo Shire councillors and staff are very keen to support this campaign in a unanimous and united way. There will be information on our website that will link to this campaign, but the key message on this obviously is about stopping violence against women, the numbers are utterly horrific. There's more than one woman a week that is killed in Australia at the hands of a former or current partner. So it is utterly horrifying. Sadly, we know that the research is showing that the incidence of violence against women is higher in rural communities than in metropolitan communities per head, and that equally is absolutely unacceptable. I know that there are a lot of people in our community who actively work to try and improve this situation, but the point of this campaign is that we can all help with preventing violence against women by calling it out and by not tolerating it, and that's everything from disrespecting women in the workplace, at home. If you see it, call it out. That's the message, and that means calling it out and also making sure that if you know that a woman is in a situation of danger to herself and often her children, that you assist her to get to the assistance that she needs. So there are many ways we can improve this situation as individuals as well as an organisation and community. And so I would urge you to look on the website, follow that link and update yourself about the kind of things that need to happen and what we can all do as individuals to stop this absolutely appalling situation that we're seeing in Australia today. Okay. So, are there any condolences tonight? I would pay condolences to those women that we're seeing killed in numbers that are so utterly unacceptable. Item 7, confirmation of minutes from previous meetings. The recommendation is that Council confirm the minutes of the ordinary Council meeting held on the 29th of October 2019 as published on the website, and confirm the minutes of the Special Council meeting, the statutory meeting, which was held on the 12th of November, as published on the Council's website. Do I have someone to move that? Thank you, Councillor Price. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch. All those in favour? Carried. Thanks. Item 8, business arising from previous minutes. Anyone want to raise any issues from the minutes? Okay. Item 9, deputations and petitions. There are none being presented tonight. Item 10, planning and corporate services. 10.1 is October 2019 finance report. The recommendation is that Council accepts the October 2019 finance report. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Trenery. Seconder. Councillor Murdoch. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll just, in brief, there's a few things to mention, I suppose. You do up a budget and you try to get fairly close to it, and that's how you grade it, whether it's up or down. If you have a look at our income, we're pretty well on track. Our expenses are pretty well on track, very close to, so therefore our net position is also on track, which is an excellent result. And I'd just like to note too, if I can, capital works, which has been something this council's been looking into and has been very serious about and wanting to get it up to a certain level. And I just note we added $3 million from carried over works from last year, and we're still at a higher rate at 15.3% completion compared to this time last year, which was 11%. So I think it's a fantastic result.
All right. Councillor Murdoch, does anyone else wish to speak to the finance report? Councillor Gaffney.
Question for the Director Infrastructure Services. Under emergency management, there's been an overspend of 88%, which is $18,941. I was just wondering why there's such an overspend in that area.
Mr. Ellett, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Look, the result is probably due to the fact that the finances are netted out with income and expenditure. So the variance is just due to the timing of the income associated with grant funding for one of the emergency management roles. So the expenditure is actually tracking fairly well.
Thank you. I've also got a question for the Director Planning and Corporate Services. Under Environmental Health Services, there's an underspend of 888% off a very low base. I was just wondering why there's such a large variance.
Thank you for the question. The answer is very similar to the last one. That's a net result in the report, and the variance is caused by the fact that we have a large amount of income that has come in before we had budgeted. We expect that surplus will reduce during the year, and we still expect to meet the budget expectations by the end of the financial year.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, any other councillors wish to ask questions? All right, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 10.2, the Indigo Planning Scheme Amendment C74 mapping errors. The recommendation is that Council request the Minister for Planning to prepare and approve Indigo Planning Scheme Amendment C74 to amend the Indigo Planning Scheme in the manner shown in the attachment, which is in the minutes. In the agenda, not in the minutes. Just to clarify for people listening, this is really just to rectify some anomalies that have been historic in the way things have been mapped. I'm quite happy if anyone's got any questions to get Mr Pinkerton to expand on that. But in the meantime, do I have someone to move that motion? Councillor Shepherd and Councillor Price second. Did you second? Okay, Councillor Shepherd.
Well, it's really just as you said. It's to take to the Minister some anomalies that have come up since the last time we've looked at our planning scheme that have come up through different issues throughout the years, and we gather them all together and send them along. So there will be a process with this, and we'll come back to the community to when it goes through.
Yep.
For them to have comments. So unless people have concerns about it now, I think it's the next thing to do.
Councillor Price, do you wish to add anything? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 10.3, the Q Springs Water Extraction Monthly Monitoring. The recommendation is that Council notes the Q Spring Water Extraction Facility Monitoring Report content and the action undertaken where required. Tonight there are two further aspects to this motion. One is number 2, that Council no longer requires the Q Spring Water Extraction Facility Monthly Monitoring Report to be presented in the monthly council meeting, and 3, requires that councillors be briefed on any planning compliance matters relating to the Q Springs operation. Do I have someone to put that recommendation? Okay, Councillor Goldsworthy. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Murdoch. Yes, would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
The Q Springs water extraction facility has been of great public interest, both to the Stanley community and the broader area. We appreciate that that interest will not wane in the short or medium term, but it is important that we use our officers' time in the best available manner. It is proposed that we no longer report on a monthly basis, that we report wholly and solely when there are issues raised. I think it is still important that it comes before us when there are issues that pertain to the Q Springs water extraction. But for the time being, given that it's been 2 years since there's been anything to note, that we should allow our staff to focus elsewhere. So for that reason, I support it.
Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, no, basically it's the same. It has been being monitored for a long time, and we haven't had anything for quite a long time that makes us feel uncomfortable. So I think that if we do this, and I know the community out there will be very watchful to make sure that this is being monitored properly by them, and they will get in contact with us. So I think it's time to put it in abeyance for us for coming to this meeting, but we want everybody still to be vigilant to let us know if there is something going on. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Gaffney, you wish to speak to the motion?
A question for the Director, Infrastructure Services. Have we had any complaints regarding local roads or Vic roads regarding damage caused by the B-doubles carrying the water?
Look, I'm not aware of any specific complaints, relating to different trucks. We get damage on our roads sort of across different time. We monitor our roads, but none that I can put my finger on that would relate to this topic or specific trucks.
You've got a follow-up question?
No, I was just going to thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak to this motion? Councillor Price.
Just to say that I only have a level of comfort in agreeing to this motion if we know that the community can still make contact through other appropriate channels, so that our concern around these issues doesn't go away. It's just not something that occurs on our regular monthly agenda.
Yep. Councillor Shepherd.
I'm happy leaving it here because it's a reminder for me every month that it is something we're keeping our eye on, and I don't really consider it to be a huge onerous burden, but it's certainly there in the agenda month to month for us to be reminded of the work that the Stanley community do around trying to keep their water for themselves. So for me, it's the least I can do as a councillor is to have that there in the back of my mind that it's an issue that needs to be considered and kept alive.
Okay. Councillor Trenery, do you wish to speak? Oh. Anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Goldsworthy, do you want to wrap that up? Okay. Thanks. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? The motion's carried. Okay. 10.4, Assembly of Councillors Records. The recommendation is that Council accepts the attached Assembly of Councillors Records. Do I have anyone to move that? Councillor Gaffney, a seconder. Councillor Price. Anyone wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Community and Economic Development, the Library Strategy 2019 to 2024. The recommendation is that Council adopts the Library Strategy 2019 to 2024. The strategy is on the agenda online if anyone would like to have a look at it. So firstly, I'll put the motion. Is there anyone that would like to move this? Adopt the Library Strategy? Do I have a mover? Councillor Shepherd. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Price. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
So there's been a lot of work done on this. Our library services are a very important part of our community. We spend a deal of money on it, and there are a number of things that have come out of this consultation that we're going to take forward. One of the interesting things that I like about this report is that we also have a key performance indicators. So we're absolutely going to see our membership go up. We're looking for it to go up to 30%, that our collection be maintained at 80%, that we have a 5% increase in library use, that we have a 20% increase in participation, that 20% increase in library profile via social media, that we have a 20% increase in the outreach service, and a user rating of 80% or higher in library user survey. So they are all things that we're going to be able to see come out of this, and I'm sure that's going to happen. There are a number of high things that we're looking at. We're definitely going to look at high priority very quickly, and one of them is a plan for minor upgrades to Chiltern and Rutherglen libraries, and with prioritising the redevelopment of Chiltern Library, and undertaking a review of the book bus service to ensure a high level of access and engagement. And there's a number of, probably another 8 or so more high, and then medium, low. So it's a great program, and we expect to see some interesting developments in the library area.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Price.
The State Libraries Victoria currently has a slogan that libraries change lives, and I think that's particularly relevant in rural settings where there are few services that libraries really are a key service. We have roads, rates and rubbish and pools and libraries, I think. And so I think it's important that we continue to expand what we offer at our libraries to continue to diversify who can access those, and that they're not just physical places anymore, that you can access audiobooks and all of the latest technologies and things through your membership. And so I'm really happy to see that we're really active in that space, and there's also lots of great grant funding available to really help us deliver on that. So I think this strategy puts us in a really good place to do exactly that.
Any other councillors wish to speak to this? Councillor Murdoch.
Yeah, and the other thing about libraries is they are great meeting places. I have the privilege of helping print off the Chiltern Grapevine, and when I get a little bit bored of that, I go up to the library at the front of our hall, and there are always people in there meeting people. They're learning to read different books that they might not do, but I think it's the social thing as well that's very important about our libraries, and I'm really quite pleased about that. I think it's terrific. Thank you.
Any other councillors? Would you like to sum up, Councillor Shepherd? Do you want to add anything?
No, just that this is it's timely that this has come along. I think it's time for us to, as I said, the Chiltern Library, especially in the Rutherglen Library, we certainly do need to look at them as a high priority. And I know that the Yakandanda Library, where I attend, is too small at the moment. So, we can see that these are that we're moving forward in that space, and it's going to be much more accessible to the elderly, the young, to everyone really, even those people who don't go in and just access it via the web.
Yep. Okay, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And I would just also like to pay tribute to our library staff who do an amazing job and connect with people. And when I talk to them, I'm absolutely amazed at the kind of things they do for people, the assistance they provide, the information they know, and the way that they engage and support people from everything from understanding technology to helping little children to read. They're wonderful, and I think we're very proud of our library staff. So, item 12.1, Part Road closure, Balaclava Road, Beechworth. So, the recommendation is that Council, in accordance with the process prescribed in Section 12 of the Road Management Act 2004, gives public notice of its intention to close part of Balaclava Road, Beechworth, as described in a survey plan, which I won't go into the numbers of. Authorise the CEO to undertake the necessary procedures. Notes that any submissions received are required to be considered by Council before a final decision is made. And in the event that no submissions are received, authorises the CEO to discontinue part of Balaclava Road, Beechworth, as described in the agenda. Do I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy, seconder. Councillor Gaffney, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Whilst it may be part of the road network at the moment, it's not a road formally. You can't drive on it. There's a fence, a couple of toilets, netball court, and an old stadium. So it's about time we updated it.
Okay. Councillor Gaffney.
It's a 3.6 metre strip of land for quite a short distance. I don't think it'll make any difference to anybody, and this is just part of the process.
Okay, I'll put the motion. Anyone else wish to speak to it? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Item 13.1 are the advisory committee minutes. The recommendation is that Council receives the attached unconfirmed advisory committee minutes and endorses the officer comments. Does anyone, can I have someone to move that? Councillor Goldsworthy, a seconder. Councillor Shepherd. Councillor Goldsworthy, sorry.
So a couple of these committees I happen to chair on the day. One's the Finance Committee meeting. You might be happy to note that the CEO's credit card is being used appropriately.
Good to know.
Yep. And the second one's the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee, shortly to be known as Indigo, all going well.
To be known as, sorry?
Indigo.
Indigo.
Yep. So this was the process of finalising the consultation that we went through with members of the Indigo Shire who have a particular interest in this area. It was developed, it's come back to Council for a briefing. We took it to what's currently known as the Economic Development and Tourism Advisory Committee. They were most supportive of this process and of the idea. So from here we'll move forward, and hopefully the Shire will look at a new committee being called Indigo.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shepherd, do you want to add anything as seconder?
The Environment Advisory Committee, I'm just trying to, I haven't, I'm the chair of that. We had that in October, and I think a number of things came out of that. The local food strategy, local food, is that what it's called? Strategy? Policy. Yeah. The local food policy, a steering committee came out of the IEAC. They've gone away to work on our local food, they're discussing where that should go. So they've already met. We've had discussion about dark skies policy, which I think was brought up by the Border Mail as well. We also looked at roadside conservation. That's coming to council. What else do we look at? There's a lot of things come out of the IEAC. Oh yes, Lockie Campbell from spoke about, where's he from? NECMA. They've got funding to look at future climate for agriculture. So there's about 6 different areas of agriculture they're looking at, and there's now mapping, and there's up to 2050, I think, where they're looking at exactly what's going to be happening within our Shire in 5-kilometre grids, so that each of those agricultural areas can look to the future as to how they're going to plan. And it was interesting looking at the Rutherglen area, and the wine region was one of the red areas that stuck out to us. So very big meetings at the environment committees. And we're also all, quite a few of us are going to be part of a webinar on Thursday, where we're looking at declaring a climate emergency and what that means to us.
Okay, thank you, Councillor. Anyone else wish to speak? Councillor Gaffney.
You mentioned about roadside, was mentioned at the Environment Committee. What did they come to? What sort of conclusion? The only reason I raise it is a couple of people have spoken about the fuel load on the Beechworth Chiltern Road, which is enormous, with the dead timber lying around, and yes, it's a disaster waiting to happen. So I just wondered what that committee was saying about it. Were they concerned about the fuel load?
They were feeding into a policy that's coming to us. Sophie could speak to it, she was there too.
Yeah, so there was an update provided and the members contributed, and it's based around changes to the major legislation. But as is always the case, firewood collection and firewood on roadsides was a big part of the discussion, as they know that that's part of where council's interest is. So no point reached, I don't think, but certainly that it was realised that that's an area of focus for council. If there was nothing else, I'd continue with comments about the minutes.
So are they for the firewood being taken from the roadside, or are they the opposite, they want it to stay there? So I'm just concerned about the fuel load with this coming dry fire season.
And certainly that was
back in I think it was 2003, 2004, the fire just swept across those roadways. It didn't go into private land, it just went like an absolute firestorm along the roadside.
And certainly that's a consideration. They talked about the different local government areas and their approaches, and the fact that we're still one of the few local government areas that offers collection of wood on roadsides. Lots of shires have banned that. They also talked about the biodiversity values of our roadside conservation values. And so obviously there's a lot of different things to take into consideration, as well as you say, the fuel load, as we look towards a very dangerous fire season. So just another comment about the minutes. The Access Committee held a meeting in Barnawartha to discuss some access issues in relation to our program about good access, good business with the Barnawartha Post Office, which has a ramp that doesn't really in any way aid a person in being able to enter the post office. So we had some preliminary discussions, well received by by the owners of the post office about introducing them to the idea of good access, good business, and then they fed some feedback into the library strategy and to the pools development strategy. And we're really lucky that we've got a really skills-based group, and one particular member, Kate, was able to provide some really important feedback into the pools development strategy. Given that she uses the equipment that we're looking at implementing, she was able to give some really valuable advice on exactly what we should get to cover as much of people's access requirements as possible. So I really thank her for that feedback. It was very useful.
Great. Okay, anyone else wish to speak to the motion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. And again, I think it is really important to note the invaluable, as Councillor Price just alluded to, the invaluable advice and support we get from our very knowledgeable and engaged community that helps advise council on everything from how we manage our environment to how we improve access and a myriad of other things. So I want to thank those committee members and again just restate how valuable their contribution is, because if we had to pay for that kind of knowledge and expertise, we just couldn't. So yeah, you provide a fantastic service to the community and to council. Okay, item 13.2, this is review of special Section 86 committee instruments of delegation. The recommendation is that Council adopts the attached Section 86 committee instruments of delegation for the following committees, and there are 11 of them mentioned here. I won't read them all out. Authorises the CEO to affix Council's common seal to the attached Section 86 committee instruments of delegation. The instruments come into force immediately once the common seal of Council is affixed to the instrument. And 3, revokes all previous delegations to the listed Section 86 committees immediately once the common seal of Council is affixed to the updated instrument. Do I have someone to move this? Councillor Goldsworthy, second Councillor Trenery. Would you speak to it? Thank you, Councillor.
Our Section 86 committees provide an invaluable resource to Council. If we were to pay the volunteers for what they do, we would shortly go broke, I would reckon.
Yeah.
We need them, and they provide a valuable service to the community. So the best we can do is have appropriate instruments of delegation that meet their needs and our needs, and I believe this does it.
Thank you. Councillor Trenner, you want to add anything?
Just obviously I was going to say the same thing as Councillor Goldsworthy. They're very, they're invaluable, the work they do for us, but I think it also shows how local people and local government can work together. We need them to do that job, they need us to be there as well, and we both benefit from this arrangement. We really work hard and work with these committees to make sure everything's done properly. Obviously they're in charge of some very expensive items on behalf of the community, and they do a fantastic job, and it's great to see that this has come about.
Okay. Councillor Price, you wish to add something?
Yeah, I'd also like to say thank you to all of the committee members, all of the volunteers of these groups. I think this document tries to walk a fine line and find the balance between all of the things that are so onerous on these committees, but also trying to make engaging with these committees a bit easier. And so I hope that there's as much that is helpful as needs to meet our requirements within these instruments of delegation. And from what I can see from the engagement with those committees, they were very pleased with it, and they were offered every opportunity to ask exactly what the practical outcomes of these changes will be, and we're happy to talk through those and accepted them as such.
Yeah. Councillor Shepherd.
I just wanted to raise that I think it's very far-seeing of us, really, futuristic, to be able, we've changed it so that people can attend the meeting via phone or video, which is really quite big.
Big change for us.
And minor decisions can be decided by email. So really trying to work with the committees so that they don't have to travel if they can't get to things, but they can still make decisions. So it's, yeah, so thanks to the staff who've worked with all those committees too to try to simplify it. It's great.
Okay, any other comments from councillors? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thanks. And again, thank you to all the volunteers for their fantastic contribution. 13. Notices of motion, there are none tonight. Councillor reports. I'll just quickly go around. Any councillors want to report back on things that they've attended in the last month? Yes, Councillor Price.
Just to report back that there were a number of councillors that attended the Friday night meeting in relation to Regional Roads Victoria proposing Reed Street as the proposed alternative route. We certainly took copious notes and were really pleased with the process that was undertaken on the night. I think it was very respectful and well chaired by Malcolm Campbell, and we really got a sense of exactly what the community was thinking, and I think it was appropriate to get all of them together. So thank you to the community for the invitation to go along to that meeting, because it was certainly useful for us if and when the decision comes to council, but certainly even ongoing with our discussions with Regional Roads Victoria, who weren't there to hear that feedback.
Any other report backs from councillors? Councillor Goldsworthy.
Oh, the Remembrance Day service on the 11th. I think most of us went to that. It's an important part of our community, just to remember those returned and fallen soldiers from a number of conflicts. And it was well attended at the Beechworth one that I went to, and I was glad to be there once again.
Councillor Trenery.
I was also going to mention Remembrance Day as well. Obviously we had one out at Yakandanda, but I'd like to mention specifically the Browns Plains, the tree of the honour of, I think it was, they're missing 3 trees, but each tree represented a member that had been, I think they represented Browns Plains School. It's no longer there anymore, and that was all done through the Morris family. There's a fantastic history written in, which would be great to get hold of, about the different occasions where the trees have gone in and failed, or there's still some remaining. But to have that, and I know that council participated in that from start to finish, did a really good job, and it was great to see that the Rutherglen RSL also, although it's not exactly their patch, got involved and helped out, which was a fantastic job.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other report backs? I would like to just talk about, on last Sunday, I had the great honour of being at the Carlisle Cemetery in Waganya to commemorate 40 Chinese graves, and for the ancestors in honour of their ancestors. We had 46, I think it was, delegates from the Chinese community come from Melbourne. This was an amazing event. They brought a feast with them. We had a wonderful lunch in the Waganya Hall. The Waganya community put on a fantastic event. And out of that, we've actually had interest from some of the delegates in exploring business opportunities from our area with China. So it was a wonderful day. It was just a very a great honour for us to be in the position to work with that community. And if you are ever heading over that way, it's wonderful to see this memorial. It's a beautiful memorial. There are grave markers there of Chinese graves. The original markers are still there. There's the Chinese burning towers. So for these people, they were saying it was an amazing event for them. And also, one of the organisers has a photo of her great-grandmother, her grandfather, and all of her great-uncles and aunts hanging in the Waganya Hall. They all went to the Waganya Primary School. So there's a wonderful connection there with the Chinese community. So it was just a wonderful event, and I guess it's one of the privileges of being a councillor, is when you get to come and share some of those kind of events that mean so much. And this was all done with the community. Councillor Murdoch worked very closely as well, so thank you, Councillor. But it was the Waganya community that got this happening, so, a huge tribute to them as well. So, any other reports? Okay, that's it. Item 15.1 is the Mayor's Diary for October. I'd like to note that this is a very busy month for Councillor Gaffney, who, once again, I'd like to pay tribute for the work he did as Mayor in the last 12 months. This is a great example of just how busy and how demanding the role can be, and Councillor Gaffney undertook that role and carried it out in an excellent way. And I think this last month here just shows all of the things that he was involved in right across the Shire. So I'd like to thank you again, Councillor. Are there any questions for Councillor Gaffney about his last month as Mayor? Or will we let him have a rest? Do you want to make any comment, Councillor?
No, it's just that it's a very busy job, and I'm sure you'll do a very good job, Madam Mayor.
Well, as you did too. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, item 16.1, there's a list there of decisions that have been made by Council from back to April 2019. I actually think this is great. It means people can go and have a look for themselves to see what Council decided, ask questions about where things are at, and it's also a good prompt for us to keep things on the boil where we've got things that we've made decisions about, where are they up to, such as Robin raised tonight with the Plate Layers Cottage. So anyone want to have a look at what we've done and where it's up to? It's all there. Any general business? Yes, Councillor Goldsworthy.
Just two items. I noticed during the week there was a question on the Beach Earth Community Facebook page in relation to Lake Samble and a set of stairs that lead to the caravan park that were washed out in the middle of December last year and haven't been fixed. I'm just wondering where Council might be at in relation to potentially repairing or replacing those stairs.
So, Mr. Ellett.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. Look, I'll take that question on notice. I can't give an answer tonight precisely where that's at, but I will follow that up and get a response back.
Okay, and I think it just proves to anyone that is watching that we do read the Facebook pages and we do keep an eye on what gets raised there. So rest assured, we are hopefully pretty up to date with the issues that are out there in the community. Any other? Yes?
So I'd just like to bookend the good causes for today.
Yep.
You might notice that I've entered into November, as poor as it might be. So it's about preventing suicide in men and also improving quality of life in relation to prostate cancer and testicular cancer. And given our close contact with the young fellow who's recently been diagnosed with that, it's all the more important. So one, to recognise it, and two, if you're still able to, please donate to the cause for Movember. You can donate specifically to under my name if you like, and be appreciated.
So just a question, Council, when does that moustache disappear?
I know it's difficult to comprehend.
It's
It's
hard to
Movember,
look at.
so I've got about 4 days left and I'll be happy to get it off.
I bet you will, and I
It's
assume...
very, very uncomfortable.
I'm assuming Diane will be very happy too. Yeah,
no more pash rash.
Okay, thank you for raising those really important issues though. And Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I have an issue to raise that's quite delicate, so bear with me as I make sure that I don't identify the person or the place with which this issue is involved. It's about our ambulance response times, and I've had a community member feedback to me about a very distressing situation where one person was required to call an ambulance on behalf of another person. They called the ambulance and began to work on this other person, CPR, and worked on them for some time. It took the ambulance 1 hour to arrive, and over that entire time, this person was working on them. Unfortunately, that person was transported to hospital and later passed away, and so I think it's important that we pass on our regards to the family at their sudden loss. And the reason I wanted to raise it is because part of the response when we've raised this issue, when previous Mayor Gaffney raised the issue, was that Indigo Shire has difficult terrain to reach some of our areas within the required time for the different levels required. And I'd like to say that this person has bitumen to their front gate, so they are in flat country, and that excuse just does not carry here. And so I'd like to ask Councillor Gaffney, I know that he was working closely with Tanya Maxwell if there's any update, and also to you, Madam Mayor, to please continue the advocacy on behalf of this family and so many others and our whole Shire, because it just highlights again, unfortunately, the worst case scenario in relation to these really poor response times.
Councillor Gaffney, would you like to comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You would all know that the CEO and I met with the Minister for Health several months ago about ambulance emergency response times. The Minister said that all Victorians were equal and that she would get back to us. She certainly hasn't. And Tanya Maxwell last week was to have a meeting with the Minister for Health, and this matter was on the agenda for that meeting. I intend to contact Tanya tomorrow to take this matter forward. It's very sad that it's come to this. There's other stories about people being injured and waiting for extended periods and then having to be driven to emergency, and it's just very sad to realise that it may be the response times that caused this person to die.
I would also like to add that this is so utterly unacceptable that I will make a commitment to you, Councillor, and I know that Councillor Gaffney will support me and the CEO and the other councillors here, that we will do everything we can to continue to call out this issue and to get a result. My own son, about 8 years ago now, waited over 4 hours for an ambulance when he had an acute attack of meningitis, and the ambulance just couldn't find the doctor's surgery in Beechworth. So I don't accept the excuse that the terrain is difficult. I think that we are not getting the services that we require here. All Victorians are equal, and we're not being treated equally as many other Victorians are. So I personally do have a commitment to this issue from my own personal experience, and to hear the stories such as this one is absolutely, it's terrible and it's heartbreaking. These are people in our communities, and the impacts go on now forever for that family. So our condolences to that family. Obviously we're not going to identify them here tonight, but I hope they know that we will do everything we can to make sure this never happens to another person in our community. And I think we are all pledging to do everything we can and to be united on this. Any other general business tonight? Okay, so I'm actually going to call the meeting closed. Sorry, I'm going to reopen the meeting very briefly. Thank you, Councillor. We did get a request from, sorry, it's my mistake, so just bear with me, from Robin McLeish to raise the issue of the NECMA land in Kiwa, Tangambalanga. Robin had a very extensive list of questions. We're not going to attempt to answer all of those tonight. We'll put those through to the director responsible. But it was actually a good reminder, just as a quick update, that we've been through a very lengthy process. Really, it's been dragged out because there was contamination on that site. Council is committed to purchasing that land because of the requests of the community, including placemaking and other things, other processes that we've been through, where access to the river in Kiwa Tangam was the #1 priority for that community. The opportunity came up with this land. It's been dragged out now because of contamination that we weren't prepared to take on that risk. That's all been dealt with, so we're almost at the point of transferring the land so that we will be able to then work with the community, as we've pledged to, for them to come up with a plan that we work with them to develop that plan, and with the community to actually develop the site. So that's the next step. And the detailed questions that Mr McLeish has raised will be submitted and answered in writing. So it was a good time to be able to say to the people of Kiwa Tangam, yes, it's taken far longer than we wanted, but it's underway, and we are going to end up with, hopefully, a great joint project there with the community and the council. Okay, now I'm going to close the meeting, and the next meeting is Tuesday the 17th of December, same time, same place. Okay, thank you.